So I did a video earlier today talking about how Judge Marchand said, yes, Donnie, you can talk in your own defense. You can testify if you want to. That is your right. And I mentioned it. He had to get on the record of saying this. And I had a Trump humper come to that post and say, well, they should have thrown the book out, throw the case out because of statute of limitations. Well, a couple things about statute of limitations. First of all, don't you think the very first thing the prosecutor would have looked at before charging anybody, let alone a former president, would have been the statute of limitations? That would have been the first thing they would have looked at to make sure that they are not outside of that, so the case gets tossed right away. Now, second, don't you think Donald Trump's attorneys have already brought up statute of limitations? I mean, if they're worth a shit, they would have already brought it up to the judge. So they would have already noticed that the statute of limitations would have been an issue. Okay, well, that's two. Well, then third, if the statute of limitations would have been brought up before the judge, I guarantee you from what I'm already seeing out of Judge Marchand, that he would have tossed the case if the statute of limitations had been passed, because he wouldn't have wanted to get overturned or have this thing turned over or face potential bar action for letting a case go forward where the statute of limitations had passed. Okay, so that's three different ways the statute of limitations shouldn't even be an issue. Well, but I did a little bit of digging too beyond that because, I actually do a little bit of research. And it seems that Donald Trump screwed himself over with this statute of limitations because in New York, you can extend the statute of limitations for a while. I don't remember exactly how many years it gets extended, but for a time while you are not living in New York, while your residence is not New York. Well, for 4 years, he was living in Washington, D.C. while he was president. The 4 years right after these events took place. Then, at some point during his presidency, he decided to move his official residence to Florida. So the statute of limitations has not even really started because, you're talking about events that happened in 2016 and leading up to the election. Most of the time after that, where the statute of limitations would have been in play, Donald Trump did not live in New York, and then now he lives in Florida. So he's, paused the clock basically for himself. So when you hear people saying the statute of limitations has already passed, they simply don't know what they're talking about.